shadows softly come and softly go. Though the heart be weary.
In the winter of 1900, the most popular girl in America was the Gibson Girl.
Still to us at twilight.
She was cool, flirtatious, every red-blooded American man's ideal. Pinned on the walls of homes across the country, from dormitories at Harvard to miners' cabins in the far west, the Gibson Girls set the standard for a generation of American women. She had elegance and style. She appeared independent and in control, dominating men with her seductive wiles. But the Gibson Girl was a fantasy of a New York magazine illustrator named Charles Dana Gibson. In reality, most women, by law and custom, were dependent upon men. In some states, a woman couldn't own property. Everything she earned belonged to her husband. And in every state but 4, she was refused the vote. A woman's only hope was to make a good marriage. But a few women were striking out on their own, choosing careers instead of husbands. Francis Benjamin Johnston was a 36-year-old photographer, pioneering a new career for women in photojournalism. President McKinley posed for her camera, just as Grover Cleveland had 6 years before. Anyone who was anyone in Washington society wanted Johnston to take her picture.
Upper-class, talented, energetic white women like Johnston are knocking at the door of social power and professional power in the United States. Women at the turn of the century, like Johnston, are beginning to come out from the shadow of men. They are demanding careers, they're trying to come out from their home, and photography is Johnston's way of doing that. Johnston's saying, I am a photographer, I can have a business. I'm not going to be a housekeeper, I'm not going to be a wife, I'm not going to have that feminine role. She's saying, I'm going to be as good a professional photographer as any man.
Johnston had studied painting in France and began drawing illustrations for newspapers before switching to photography. Photography, she wrote, was the more accurate medium.
This is a new era for photography. A way of printing photographs in the illustrated press has just been invented. And people like Johnston are trying to figure out now what photography is for. She's getting commissioned by magazines to discover how you can use a camera to do photo documentary.
By 1900, photographs were replacing illustrations in the popular press. And Johnston was helping define a new profession, photojournalism, showing Americans pictures of themselves they had never seen before. Johnston traveled across the country, leaving a telling record of the people of her day. Coal miners in Pennsylvania, sailors returning from the Spanish-American War, immigrants pouring into New York City, black college students in Virginia, sharecroppers in the South. Johnston's portraits introduced Americans to the faces of the famous men and women of her time. War heroes, Admiral Dewey and Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. The educator, Booker T. Washington. Inventor, Alexander Graham Bell. Scientist, George Washington Carver. Mark Twain. Andrew Carnegie. And Susan B. Anthony.
I'm amazed at her appetite for recording the people of her day, how much she traveled, how often she tracked down any opportunity to take pictures.
In a series of photographs taken at a shoe factory in Lynn, Massachusetts, Johnston challenged the idealized image of women at the turn of the century. The women of Lynn spent their days in foul-smelling rooms, the floors soaked with chemicals, the air reeking with poisonous fumes. They worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and earned less than $32 a month, barely enough to put food on the table.
Johnston's images of women working in factories look slightly bedraggled, they look tired, but they look very alive and human. They don't look discouraged. They look hopeful. Johnston's photographs have the same kind of pluck that Johnston had and knew in herself. Johnston's finding the vitality in America. And that's very much the spirit of the age, the vision of America which can move into the next century, sure of itself, confident, believing that its dreams, if not true at the moment, will come true.